This podcast is cursed.
Why?
We have had 2 episodes fail completely.
Yeah, get a better computer, dude.
Well, no, the first one was your fault. Because remember, you had it and couldn't upload it.
No way, dude.
Yeah, absolutely. You sat on it for 2 weeks, then you went to upload it, and then you cried. Like, oh, it won't work.
You need to face the facts, dude.
Oh, I use iMovie in 2019. Oh.
Yeah. It's the updated version.
Now, the second time, we tried to record it, and it cut out 20 minutes in. And we just kept talking for an hour, and it never worked.
And it didn't matter at all.
So, hey, welcome back to episode, I don't even know what it is anymore. No. Who cares? We're back with the podcast that still has no name. Maybe it will when we upload it.
That's true. How you doing today?
I hope so. Honestly, I'm okay. I'm very tired. There's a lot of news. A lot of things.
You're very tired?
Yeah, I'm very tired. I've had a long day.
Doing what?
Well, I had to go visit my brother first.
That sounds exhausting.
We went out to eat.
I'm so sorry.
That was a long time.
You must just be...
Well, last night I spent hours working on that video. You know, you didn't do anything, but I'm happy for you.
Thank you.
And I guess, then I waited around for you to show up and you don't answer your phone. So, well, here
we
are.
Dude?
Here we are.
I was driving.
We're having a great day.
We have strict laws here.
A fantastic day. Well, they're not that strict. They're only strict
if you get
caught.
Yeah, we do.
Only if you get caught.
I guess.
So... what do we have going on today? A lot. You're still eating strawberries, and for some
reason,
I'm
hungry.
You can't stop, even though you've eaten a ton, and you're getting a little chunky there.
What do you mean? I'm halfway through.
So, we got some movie news, and it's about our boy Tom Holland.
Yes, it is.
Fantastic boy. Fantastic little kid. I think he's like 23
I think he's
now.
older than I am.
Yeah, I think he's older than I am, too. I think he's like 24. Maybe he's 25, actually. I don't know.
He looks 12.
But he does, and that's why he's able to play Peter Parker in high school, which is great. So hopefully he stays looking 12 until he's done.
Gotta make sure that happens.
Age.
Nope.
He actually, we got confirmation from our inside sources, as in online articles, that he is the reason that Spider-Man is staying in the MCU, which is pretty cool.
That is kind of cool.
Essentially, after the entire fan outpouring of support for Spider-Man...
Wait, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Are you saying that he is solely responsible for it happening?
Well, he's not solely.
Okay.
But he's being credited. Because essentially there was the massive fan outpouring of support for Spider-Man staying in the MCU. Sony and Disney didn't really care. Is kind of what seems to be being implied. Is that happened. Sony and Disney were like, yeah, whatever. Like, because it's like, obviously they care how they look, but they care more about money. Then Tom Holland comes in and he's like, hey guys, maybe we should talk about this some more, because negotiations had ceased. And he came back and he talked to both the head of Sony Pictures and Disney and said, hey, listen, look, this is something the fans really want. It's probably for the best interest of both companies to just look good and do it and just go back and renegotiate. So they went back to the table, actually negotiated again, and it happened. So that's kind of what pushed them to talk about it again.
So who did he go talk to? Did he go talk to like a CEO?
Yeah, he talked to both Bob Iger and the head of Sony Pictures.
Who's Bob Iger?
Bob Iger's the head of Disney.
Oh, okay.
Or one of them. Essentially, he works a lot with the Marvel and Disney properties. And also he went and talked to, I don't even think it was Amy Pascal, because Pascal's in charge of Pascal Pictures, but he had talked to Rothman, who's high up in Sony. I don't know if he jumped Pascal to do that, like just didn't talk to her about it, or what. She has pull, but she's not the final say in Sony. So essentially, he went to the heads and said, hey guys, maybe you should be thinking about this. And I'm paraphrasing here, I'm paraphrasing a paraphrase of what he said. But essentially, it was kind of the idea of, like, this would look good for everybody. Technically, this is what everyone wants. There's a very, very, very small amount of people that actually want you to split and not close this off, so you should probably, deal with it.
So where did Disney and, where did the negotiations end up, I guess? Because the thing was percentages, right? And then, I don't think merchandise mattered, but where did, the negotiations end up because of Tom Holland's push?
Well, what do you mean, where did they end up?
What were the percentages? Do you know? Because I thought it was, at first it was rumored that it was 50-50.
Well, it's not 50-50 now.
Right, and that's what I was going to say, is Marvel was like, no, we did not say 50-50. I think they said, 30% or something like that, right?
Yeah, and I did not keep that in the docket, because we actually talked about that when they first went back.
Okay.
But essentially, when we had talked about it, it was revealed online that it was around 25 or 30% for Disney.
Okay.
and then it was the rest for Sony. So they kind of both budged some.
A healthy compromise, then.
Yeah, and honestly, Sony needs that money more than Disney. If we're being real fair here, like Disney has multi-billion-dollar franchises, and more than one of them, they have Star Wars. They have every Marvel property, which they're under an umbrella, and each of them is making like $1 billion for solo films.
It's monstrous.
They don't need this. I get why people would side with Disney because they made the good Spider-Man movies, but essentially they were asking for something they did not need, which maybe they deserved it, sure, but they didn't need it. And Sony was like, well, you don't really need that. Why should we give that to you? And Disney's like, okay, see ya. It's kind of how it went,
yeah, essentially.
And you can kind of say like, well, Sony won, or like, well, Disney won kind of too. It's a compromise. That's really all it is. And I guess it's because of the fans and because of Tom Holland, but at the end of the day, it's because of money.
Yeah, money was the driving factor of them working together. And Tom Holland, it's really cool. I think the big part of this story is really cool is that the guy that's playing Spider-Man was really tuned into what the fans wanted and understood, in the grand scheme of things, what his character would do, like where his character would thrive as compared to where he would not thrive. I mean, looking at it, who knows? Sony could have made something really good by themselves. When we've talked about that before.
They could have, but the only time they did that, other than Spider-Verse, which is totally animated, and I think the rules are different with making an animated movie. You're able to be more off the wall and out there. They have a talking pig. So, they're able to just kind of do their own thing in that. The only time they ever made something really good other than that was lucking into Sam Raimi for Spider-Man 1 and 2. And some people would argue that 2 is still the best Spider-Man movie ever made. And that's a point of debate. It depends on what you like in terms of style. With like, some people don't like Spider-Man playing second fiddle to Tony Stark in the MCU, and I get that. I think that the current arc is probably close to, if not about the same as far as well written in terms of Spider-Man 2. I don't necessarily think one of them's better than the other one. I think they're very different. But that was like the penultimate Spider-Man movie Sony was able to make other than their animated Into the Spider-Verse.
Was 2 with Raimi.
Yeah. And it was all downhill from there. Like 1 was really good. 2 was the pinnacle. 3 was a huge mess. Amazing Spider-Man was soulless. And then Amazing Spider-Man 2 was soulless and a huge mess. And so it's like, I don't really know if I trust them to have handled it themselves, especially after Venom. You can love Venom. I actually really like Venom. I also think it's bad.
Yeah, I don't know if I think it's bad. I think it's got issues, for sure. It kind of reminds me of maybe a little worse off version of like, not version, a little worse off movie than Batman vs. Superman. Where like, it's got some good qualities of it, and I'd say it's worse than Batman vs. Superman, but it still had fun things, and I enjoyed the movie.
But that's the thing is, I think there is a difference between enjoying the movie and thinking it's objectively good. I don't think it's a well-written movie.
Sure.
I think it is a hodgepodge. You can tell that movie was originally going to probably be rated R, or at least closer to R, and a big portion of the second act was yanked out. And I think that hurt the movie. The best parts of it, though, are Tom Hardy acting with Tom Hardy.
Right.
Being Venom.
Yes.
And being Eddie Brock interacting with the suit. That's what made it so fun. And I think it was fun in the same way you and I have enjoyed Transformers. Like, where it's like, there's portions of this that are good writing. The majority of it is bad writing. The whole thing is fun. And that's kind of how I think of Venom.
Yeah.
But I think Spider-Man should be more than that, because they've proven it can be real cinema. That's kind of where I stand on it. And I don't know if I would trust Sony to be able to do that right now. I especially don't think they really had learned all of Kevin Feige's tricks like they had implied. Like, oh, we watched him make 2 movies. We're good for life.
We're set. Yeah.
I just think that's kind of hubris and a bad attitude, I guess.
And kind of inauthentic, too. Because it's like, oh, we've seen how he's done it. No, we can do something similar. I don't know.
Yeah, so it's like we'll just copy Kevin Feige. We'll be dollar store Kevin Feige and it'll be good enough.
It's not a bad idea because he's brilliant. But at the same time, do your own thing,
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know how I feel about it. And again, I want to stress, I enjoy Venom.
Yes.
But I think the quality writing of Venom is very different from the quality of writing of any Spider-Man movie, except maybe like Spider-Man 3.
Certainly. Oh, yes.
So I don't know.
Amazing Spider-Mans, maybe.
Yeah. Which, it's weird because then you have something like The Amazing Spider-Man 1, which technically was a fine written movie, but it felt soulless and Peter Parker was a douchebag, so people didn't like it. So I don't know. It's just Sony's been such a mixed bag with handling them that I'm glad Tom Holland was able to help them work this out.
Agreed.
That's really all I have on it. But I do have one question, though, for you.
Sure.
And it's something that I was thinking about. Do you think that this same Tom Holland Spider-Man, though, will then leave the MCU but still exist as the same character in Sony? Because that's kind of what I'm thinking now, is that eventually this will tie into Spider-Verse. That they will move the Tom Holland Spider-Man through into a different dimension so that Sony can make movies with him after his MCU arc is closed. Because we have one more MCU movie and an MCU appearance. So to me, it kind of seems like they're not going to dump Tom Holland Spider-Man. He's too much of a moneymaker.
I didn't... Sorry. I didn't know that. So there's only... Because I thought he was doing all 9 movies with the MCU. That's just with Sony. Because he's got like a 9-movie contract, correct?
Well, he had a contract. His original contract was to appear, I believe it was 5 times. It was in Civil War, the first Spider-Man, so Homecoming, Infinity War, Endgame, and Spider-Man 2, so Far From Home. That was his original. The extended contract with Marvel is now Spider-Man 3 and an appearance in a future MCU movie. That's it. So that's 7 movies. So we don't really know, because the original was 5, and now he's reportedly appearing in multiple Sony Spider-Man villain movies. And there's been hints that it will tie somehow into Spider-Verse, because they talked about, in the quote that we read, it was like a week ago, about how Spider-Man is the only superhero with the ability to jump between franchises, or like jump between different movie studios.
Properties, basically.
Yeah. So I just kind of wonder how they're going to work that out. I think you could competently do that without throwing out the history. I don't know. I guess I would prefer he just stays there, but it doesn't really seem like that's in the cards, that it's a permanent thing. If it was, there'd be more in this deal, I think.
Yeah, for me personally, I think I would prefer that he stay in the MCU and that they build off of that. And I think that he could make fun appearances in Sony's stuff. I think that potentially a movie with Venom, or if they went like directions with like some of the villains, like you said, I think there's some good potential there for some fun films. He's a great actor. Pair him with Tom Hardy. That could be an interesting, like almost a funny dynamic where maybe they end up as like working together at some point. I don't know. This is just obviously me just speculating and dreaming of a good Venom Spider-Man movie, but that could happen. I personally would prefer that he stay in the MCU and that they build off of that and almost build the Avengers around him, kind of, is what I would like to see. I don't think I have no problem with him going over to Sony and doing fun movies with Sony that could potentially be great. Like Into the Spider-Verse, I think he could really blend in there great and then be a nice addition to the group of Spider-Man that we saw in that movie. It was really good. And I think that he could do really well in like the Venom verse, I guess. I would personally prefer to see more of him in the MCU, though.
But do you think that he will stay there? Because I'm kind of starting to think...
In the MCU or in...
In the MCU. Because I'm kind of starting to think that maybe long-term they would like to transition him over. Otherwise, I don't see why the deal would be...
Sony or Marvel?
Like, I think Sony wants him back. I think Marvel would love to keep him forever. But I think it's not going to happen. Because otherwise, I personally think they would have done more than one movie. Because this is just one solo movie, and then an appearance. That's it. That's like a third of the original deal in terms of length.
Yeah, that's not much.
So that's why I think this kind of seems like a lifeline, like an extension to save the Spider-Man trilogy, save part of the MCU, and make it actually make sense. Then you kind of try to organically move him over. Maybe in the Spider-Verse, he gets moved over and ends up somewhere else. I'm not saying it's a good written thing. I'm just saying that's what it kind of seems like.
So you're saying
we're heading towards.
Yeah, so maybe it seems like they're giving Marvel a chance to wrap up their story.
Yeah, you finish it.
And like we're giving you space to figure everything out before we just like take him from your universe, essentially, is what you're saying.
Yes.
That's interesting. I could see that being true. Mm-hmm. It's a bummer, but I could see it being true.
And maybe as a sign of good faith, again, just speculation, but maybe as a sign of good faith there, it's like, so you finished up your MCU storyline. We take back Spider-Man. he's the same MCU Spider-Man, now he's just in our stuff because we did you a favor here, gave you a bunch of money off the back of this movie, let you close out that character. We can reference those movies now in ours.
So they can reference Tony Stark. They can reference that relationship.
Yeah, maybe they can reference the history of this Spider-Man so that it's not just, hey guys, I'm Tom Holland Spider-Man, but not the Tom Holland Spider-Man you knew before.
Which is what we were worried about.
Yeah, because it would be stupid.
It would be really dumb.
That's why we were worried about it, because it would be dumb.
Yes.
And I don't know. I just could see that being the case. Again, it's just total rampant speculation based off of this new deal and how business works, because it's all about money.
Right.
And if Sony ultimately could make more money off of it, they're going to.
Yes, they are.
There's no reason for them not to.
Definitely. And I wanted to transition now into still staying with the MCU, but I actually moved it up in our docket, so brace yourself.
Oh, thank you so much.
It's about Black Widow, and that movie that's supposed to be coming out in May, I believe, is what I read. And what I saw, it's from Cinema Blend. They were saying that Black Widow is likely already doing reshoots.
Are these the reshoots to include Tony Stark, or are these different reshoots?
Unknown. And it could be good or bad. It could just be adding some things that they liked. Otherwise, it's not necessarily like a Suicide Squad where they're, reshooting it and messing with or Justice League, I guess, in a more extreme example of a superhero movie that got botched by reshoots. But it's just reshoots are happening. It could be Tony Stark. It could be other things like that. But there was a production going on where they were closing down the streets in, I believe, the city of Macon, where it's kind of going under a code name called Blue Bayou, which is connected with Black Widow in the past.
Okay.
So this project was called Blue Bayou as well, and so it was happening again recently. So that's why these reshoots are rumored to be happening, because it's the same name and it's the same kind of people that are there, and they closed off streets. So reshoots are believed to be happening.
So you know what's interesting about this? I just have my quick 2 cents to throw in on that. I don't actually think that's a problem.
I don't either.
And the reason I say that is not just because it's Marvel, like, oh, in Marvel we trust. Reshoots are actually extremely common in movies, and they have been for the last 30 years. We just didn't start hearing about them until there were some really bad movies connected to reshoots. Like, again, if you like Suicide Squad, I'm not personally attacking you, not you, but the audience.
Is that a personal attack or something?
I'm sorry, Miss Larson. No, it's not. Yeah. But it was associated with reshoots, and the movie came out, and generally it was pretty not liked. There's a lot of people who did enjoy it, and I think it falls under that same Venom-y camp of, like, there's plenty of people who think, okay, it's not that great, but I really had fun. Fair enough, that's fine. There's also a lot of people who think it's horrible and really didn't like it. So it's very polarizing.
Same thing with Justice League.
Yes.
The Snyder Cut.
I would say Justice League was less polarizing, though, because it's almost like, oh man, this is mean. Dollars, not the Snyder Cut, but the one that hit theaters.
Joss Whedon's. It's
kind of dollar store Avengers-y, where it's like, well, it's still like Avengers-y, so it's still fun. Like there was still quality to be found in parts of it. With Suicide Squad, it seems like the majority of the quality was found in Margot Robbie and Jai Courtney and the costume department.
Yes.
And that is it.
That's about it, yeah. Some people liked Will Smith, but...
Yes. And a lot of the rest of us just thought it was Will Smith playing Will Smith. He kind of seemed bored to me.
Yeah, he did.
But I guess what I'm saying is that, like, the association with movies that have turned out to not have good reception is what makes people worry about reshoots. I don't think they're necessarily a bad thing in and of themselves. Sometimes they can help. Like, I guess, Solo had a lot of reshoots, and when it first came out, everyone was pissed off at Star Wars. They didn't want to watch it because they didn't like The Last Jedi. Now people are kind of coming around on Solo, even today, and saying, like, it's actually not bad. It's actually a good movie, or it's fine. It's not the best, but it's fine. And that movie had a lot of reshoots. And supposedly they helped it. Now, it would have been a totally different movie if they hadn't lost the original directors, but the reshoots can help movies too, I guess. So we don't know what this is. I don't think people should worry about this. People see reshoots, they freak out. It's okay.
It's not a big deal.
That's really it.
Like you said, it could be very beneficial. It could just be that they're patching up something that they didn't like, or they're just doing a cameo, because we know that Tony Stark is making an appearance in this movie. So
it's very likely a small appearance.
Exactly. So this could just be a really small thing. I'm not worried about it. It was just something I wanted to note because it was a newsworthy story.
Yeah.
It's a big movie coming out. It's the next, I guess technically the next big MCU movie coming out. So
well, it is one I'm excited for. I really like Scarlett Johansson in that role. I think it's too bad that she improved so much over time and we won't really see her much anymore.
No. Yeah.
But, you know, and really it just seemed like the writers learned how to write Black Widow. Because Scarlett was great every movie she was in. But she had some cringy stuff in some of them. Like Joss Whedon's There's Red in My Ledger. Like, you know she did not write that. It was stupid.
It's really bad.
But, you know, she did a good job with what she had. So,
which is what an actor's supposed to do.
Yeah.
So that's why, yeah, she's a good actor. She did what she was supposed
She absolutely is. I know she's not the most popular person after, you know, all of the, like, everything with playing the Major in Ghost in the Shell and her comments on, like, how actors should be able to play any race of person and stuff. Mm-hmm. Like, there's a lot of people that don't like her. But it's like, you can not like her and understand she's a good actress.
Yes.
I don't really care that she said those things personally, because I guess I see it as they're people being paid to dress up and pretend to be someone else. I don't really care who they pretend to be. But that's me, you know? And I'm also a white guy, so I'm sure that some people will be like, well, you know, who cares that you think that? That's fine.
Check your privilege.
That's fine. That's okay. I'm allowed to think that, and you're allowed to think what you think, and I think she's a good actress, so I don't know.
Yeah.
My story here jumps studios into something totally different. We reported on how Tom Welling will be returning as Clark Kent in the upcoming CW Arrowverse Crisis on Infinite Earths, which I'm actually very excited for, despite historically not loving the Arrowverse to death since it transitioned over from Smallville and started with, you know, Stephen Amell's Arrow and became the Arrowverse. There's parts of it I like. I have not watched as much of it as you. But I'm excited for this crossover. And Tom Welling, yes, he's returning as Clark Kent, but there's new reports that he will be coming back in the Superman suit at some point in the crossover. You would think that doesn't matter. Clark Kent is Superman. But in the original show, he suited up one time, and he did not even suit up. It was green screen.
Oh.
It looks, by the way, it holds up. It actually looks good.
Really?
They
Okay.
green screened a Superman suit onto him. And surprisingly, it looks okay. But he never wore it. And there's a couple reasons for it. He's kind of defended that in the past. Essentially, there's conflicting reports on him saying he didn't want to be typecast as Superman. That he wanted to play Clark Kent, the character, but not end up like a Superman. Like, oh, it's just Tom Welling as Superman. And have that follow him his whole career. So he didn't really want to put the suit on. There's probably other reasons to it, too. I don't really know. You'd have to, you know, ask Tom in person.
Right.
Which I don't really have access to him. But he's a very talented actor. You know, he improved as Smallville improved, too. And I always thought he was good and likable and a very human-feeling character and actor. And so to see him come back as the Superman that I grew up with when I watched Smallville, and to finally see him in that suit when I'm now in my 20s, and I wasn't even a teenager when I started watching the show, you know? Like, that's pretty cool.
You're getting the payoff that you waited so long for.
Yeah.
A little bit.
And I was okay with the payoff of just, spoiler alert for Smallville, the finale, of him putting on the green screen suit in the finale. I was okay with that payoff. But a lot of people weren't. A lot of people were bummed out that they didn't really get to see him wearing it. And so I think it's really cool that we might now finally be able to. This is from WeGotThisCovered.com. So you know, their reports go back and forth on being super accurate and not. But the thing is that these are from sources, and they're the same ones that told them that Welling was originally coming back when they broke that news before it happened, and who told them that there was going to be an Arrow spinoff starring Kat McNamara, which was now in the works. So they had found out some stuff about the CW shows early on before other people knew, and around the same time some other news outlets were starting to kind of get that information, and that stuff came true. So if that pattern holds true, this will too. And that's really exciting. It's especially interesting because Tyler Hoechlin and Brandon Routh were shown in Superman suits together on set, but Tom Welling was not in that photo. The only photos Tom Welling's shown up in are him dressed as Clark Kent on the Clark farm, the Kent family farm. Welcome to the Clark farm. Yeah. But that's all that's shown up so far. I think this will be a big reveal, maybe in the second or third part of the 5-part thing, and then he will stay in costume for the other part or two, is essentially what I think. But that's just speculation from me.
Right.
But I'm so excited.
That's
honestly,
awesome.
because I grew up with this guy.
Yeah.
So it's a great payoff for anyone who grew up watching Smallville.
Yes, it is. I think it's a well-deserved thing, and that's what we've talked about with this Crisis on Infinite Earths Arrowverse spectacular that's going on. It's kind of a payoff going back to people that have watched this stuff for a long time. And you're getting the payoff of stuff that maybe you didn't get. Hopefully they do it right, and it's a good quality product that they put out too, because who knows? I don't want it to be super soap opera, because that's how it can be in the Arrowverse. It's known for that, and there are certain things that are great about it. And then there are other things like, you've watched the Smallville stuff very closely. I never watched the show, but I did watch Arrow, and I watched parts of Flash, and I never got into Legends of Tomorrow or anything like that. And we've talked about this a little bit, so I won't spend too much time on it. But I don't want them to go towards the route that they have been lately, at least from what I've seen in later seasons of Arrow, where it was very soapboxy, and it was very
politically driven,
and it was not great. And I don't want them. The thing that concerns me, I guess, about it is I don't want them to take a character like Tom Welling and then put like a political agenda with these characters as they're there. And I doubt they will, and I hope they don't. But that's a concern with CW. Is I don't want them to go that route. Just enjoy the characters, flesh them out, give them their really cool like aha moments when they show up, just to kind of wow the audience and let them have their spotlight, and just let that be that, and it can be great. It doesn't need to have an agenda behind it, is my only thing with the CW.
Well, and Supergirl has been a little preachy too.
Yes.
Since that came out. And I really like the actress that plays Supergirl. I think she does a good job. I think has an adorable personality. Like, she just seems like a human person.
Just bubbly.
But then things around her don't. Like, if you watch the show, like, it'll be like, all of a sudden there's just like a really hamstrung, like, shoved in their political message from somewhere else, and it's like, oh, you're right, you know? It's like, it's just not organic, and it's kind of obnoxious. And it doesn't matter whether that political statement is from the right or the left. It's usually a left-leaning one. But even if it was, like, hardcore, you know, from the right, it would be just as annoying. Like, I just don't need it in everything.
No.
Like, I get enough of it in the real world. And it's not that you can never have that message. It's that you shouldn't have it every time. Like, that's what's annoying.
And do it so loudly to where the audience doesn't have to critically think about it all. It's just like, oh, that's their message.
Yeah.
Gun violence. Or that's their message. Feminism. Like, it's very broadly almost stated to the point of, like...
Yeah, it's almost like at the end, they like, the Arrow actors come out on screen, they're like, that's why you need to vote. You know? Like, they tell you, like, just straight up. It's like, okay, I get it. I got it, all right?
Yeah, there was one episode I remember where they were actually, like... One of the characters was saying gun violence against African American statistics at one point in the episode. It's like, I'm watching a show about superheroes, and the character that was doing it, wears a T on his face. That's all. I mean, you can do that, and sure, you can have messages of, like, realism and of the real world and real deep, intense themes. But you don't need to spit real world facts about gun violence in an episode, in my opinion. I don't need that.
I don't think you do either. I think at that point it's really beating you over the head, and I also think it's condescending and treating the audience like they're idiots.
Yeah.
Like, the audience can't figure that out for themselves. Like, the audience can't understand that, oh wow, there's a lot of gun violence against African American people. Like, they just are incapable of understanding that fact unless, like, Green Arrow and T-Man tell them.
I think it's Mr. Terrific.
Yeah, that's who it is.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's condescending and kind of weird. And I think there's a lot of examples of fiction that are able to give messages like this and do them well. You know, Blade Runner has some political undertones in both of the movies. They do an excellent job of it. There's a lot of racism undertones in them that they're able to get away with and do because it's science fiction that make you think, oh, the replicants are kind of like how minorities and other people are treated in the real world. Oh, that makes sense. Without being like, hey, that replicant is from Mexico. You know, like, they don't do that. Like, it's just preachy and annoying, and it makes you look like an idiot.
Yes.
And, you know, Get Out does the same thing where they're able to... Jordan Peele was able to, like, smartly... And he is a little brazen with it, like a little more in your face, but enough that it's, like, strong without being like, no, you're an idiot. This is what my movie's about. If it hits the point where you have to spell it out, your writing's not good. That's the problem with it.
Exactly. And I don't want that to happen to Tom Welling and Brandon Routh and all these people that are coming back. That was my only concern. To I guess, sum up what we were saying, that's really what we don't want. Is for them to ruin these moments with CW tendencies at time. So I don't want that.
You don't want them to bog it down with real world crap.
No.
Over and over.
No.
And especially not spelled out real world crap.
Exactly.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think that is a danger with the network. I get that it's from a good-hearted place, I'm sure. You know, like, they don't do it to be, like, annoying. But you can be smart about it and do the same thing.
Definitely. Yeah.
I did want to mention, too, I don't have this on the docket, but, there is actually a character coming back from Birds of Prey, the show, that's going to be... Do you remember the Birds of Prey show?
No, not at all.
There was a Birds of Prey TV show, and it was really weird and convoluted, and it was essentially about Bruce Wayne and Selena Kyle had a secret daughter, and I think her name was... I'm on ScreenRant.com. I just thought it was easier to actually read off a synopsis of Birds of Prey, because it was recently revealed that
the TV show.
The TV show, yes.
Of course.
It was recently revealed that a character from the old Birds of Prey TV show that was very short-lived is going to come back in Crisis on Infinite Earths for the CW Arrowverse, which is weird. This is a deep cut to actually bring back.
Who is it?
So, Birds of Prey.
Which I had no idea existed before he told me.
I know, and surprisingly did. It's set in an alternate future. This show saw Gotham City threatened by a new wave of metahuman criminals the police were ill-equipped to handle. Thankfully, the city had a new protector in the form of Helena Kyle. This is the Huntress. So, this is not the Huntress but it's not the same Huntress. This is...
But it's the same name.
Yes, Bruce Wayne and Catwoman's daughter, who they had in secret, grows up and becomes the new Huntress. And she's essentially... So, she's Batman's daughter. And this was after he left Gotham. So... She has metahuman powers, so she has enhanced agility, super strength. She has a danger sense, which is like spider sense, I guess, which is kind of a knockoff.
My gosh.
Night vision, and an accelerated healing factor.
Night vision?
Yes.
Where did she get these qualities?
I don't understand that. I don't know. She was also joined by a telepath named Dinah, which was essentially their version of Dinah the Black Canary.
Okay.
And her father's butler, Alfred Pennyworth. And her foster mother, Barbara Gordon, who was the Oracle.
I thought they were going to do like a spin-off name of Alfred too, like Alfred Nickleworth. Just like something stupid.
No, absolutely not.
Okay, thank
But
heavens.
It's pretty cool because Helena Kyle, the actress who played her, Ashley Scott, is coming back in Crisis on Infinite Earths. Nobody knows if the rest of the cast or any of them are actually coming back. There is maybe some talk about Dinah Meyer, who she played Oracle, that she could maybe come back. They don't really know, but it's a possibility. This is very cool, though. It's a deep cut. It's really interesting. This is a really weird show. I watched a couple episodes of Birds of Prey back in the day. I was pretty young, though. I think it was in the very, very early 2000s.
How many... Did it just get the one season? How many seasons did it get?
I thought I only got 1 or 2.
Okay. Because I'm looking at the IMDb, or not really the IMDb, but like the reviews of it, and it got like 8 out of 10, 6 out of 10, 50%. So it's not on Rotten Tomatoes, that is. So it's not awful. Seems like it was just a mediocre show. So it wasn't like, an abomination.
Well, yeah, it was only one season. It ran from the end of 2002 through the beginning of 2003, and then it ended. 13 episodes.
That's crazy.
And they even have references to the Joker in that show. A lot of weird stuff. But it's very cool that the CW is actually bringing on all these people from the past.
That I didn't even know about. So that's actually really interesting. I like that.
Yeah, they're really going in deep to the alternate realities of the CW verse and like the DC television show universe.
Yes.
It also makes me wonder if we'll ever see any characters from the DC Universe streaming app in this. But I have no idea.
I don't know. That'd be kind of cool too. I haven't watched the shows on there though, so I don't know.
It seems like they're trying to keep that separate. It's sort of trying to be its own thing.
Yeah, definitely.
And this is definitely the weird thing about DC and Warner Brothers is they have so many splinterings of their own brand, and they all offer their own things. So it's good for consumers who want that, but it's less consolidated like Marvel is, where
there's not a real like standard continuity, I guess.
Right. There's multiple.
Very much.
And
so.
the comics and all the animated and the other animated continuity.
It's all over the place.
Yeah, it's everything. So I don't know. It's cool though.
Yes, and well, I was gonna say, building off of Birds of Prey, what did you think of the Birds of Prey trailer that we just got? What was it, yesterday? 2 days ago?
Well, it was when we recorded this. It'll probably be almost a week ago when the podcast goes up.
Of course.
But I don't know what to think about it. You know, I think Harley looks really cute.
Sure.
Like, I really like her look.
I like those golden overalls.
Yeah.
That's a sweet look.
I like that they're bringing in her hyenas, like, because they've shown those in the actual posters.
Yes.
The promotional marketing and art direction of these are really cool. However, it's a weird take on Black Mask from what we've seen in the trailer. That did not seem like Black Mask, the character that Ewan McGregor is playing. It just did not seem like Black Mask. It seems like from the trailer that they're focusing much more on Harley Quinn maybe than the Birds of Prey, which I'm fine with because I like Harley, but that's doing a bit of a disservice to the Birds of Prey, I guess.
That's what I thought too. As I was watching it, I was really excited to click on the video, and then as I got into it further and further, it was just Harley Quinn narrating. Occasionally, you saw Ewan McGregor, and they showed really small, like half a second clips of like the Huntress and some of the other characters. I don't even know who the other characters are because I didn't even talk about them. But it was just that she said the other dames of the city, kind of. Is what she said.
There's the Huntress, there's Harley Quinn, there's Black Canary, and I thought that was it.
I think there's supposed to be more too. So that's why it's going to be obviously heavily focused on Harley Quinn. But if you're going to do a Birds of Prey movie, and this is just one trailer, I hope that they do flesh out the other characters, because that was one thing that I was thinking as I was watching this, is it reminded me quite a bit of Suicide Squad, in that it didn't, in the way that it was shot, in the way that it moved from frame to frame, it really reminded me of certain aspects of Suicide Squad, which is scary a little bit. And the one thing that it reminded me of too is that the Suicide Squad didn't do a great job of fleshing out some of its characters at all. And I'm wondering if this is going to be a problem with Birds of Prey too. This is just one trailer, so we obviously don't know. Maybe they're hiding those other characters, and there's going to be some breakout stars from this movie from that.
Yeah, that's possible.
And they were just showing Harley Quinn to get its name out there. But looking at it, I really do hope that this isn't like a spin-off version of Suicide Squad a bit, where the secondary characters really are secondary characters, and they just highlight a couple characters. And Harley Quinn's a good one to highlight, but I also want them to kind of create some depth with the characters a bit, you know? So I hope that happens. And that was just my impressions of the trailer.
I think you said most of my impressions, other than that the takes of some of those characters, like I said, are just odd.
Yes.
And different, which is okay, but there should be substance to it.
For sure.
And I kind of wonder if there will be, because there wasn't much to Suicide Squad. I do think that it's an interesting idea to try to separate Harley from the Joker. I actually think that she's more interesting without him. Personally, like as the damaged goods left behind by Joker that, you know, she has to kind of make her way in the world, figure out where she fits. I think her comics with, I believe it's Amanda Conner, who did a lot of that work, they're really good. And that's because they're able to go in that direction. So if they're able to kind of do that in this, I'm down for it. I don't want it to be a disservice to the other characters in the movie to do that. And I'm a little afraid that they are going to squad it up again. But maybe they won't.
It's a legitimate fear. But it's just one trailer. We don't know. So
yeah.
We'll give it time for maybe a second trailer and see what it turns out.
And I love her costume design. Yeah, love it.
Really cool. Really cool.
Do you need water?
I'm good, thank you, though.
Okay. Because you sounded parched.
I don't know, my throat is kind of itchy, but but I'm good now. So
but I literally can get you water, because I'm going to have to cut this out anyway.
It's okay. I should be good now.
Okay.
So moving on to our next story, just to kind of keep it going here.
Yeah.
I wanted to move into The Batman. There was a few smaller things that we don't need to spend too much time on. but it's kind of cool to talk about and speculate about. So Matt Reeves is reportedly, according to Screen Rant, Matt Reeves The Batman is reportedly close to announcing casting news for the supporting characters, villains, depending on what way they go, of Catwoman, Two-Face, Penguin, and the Riddler.
That's a lot.
That's a lot of characters to go with Robert Pattinson's Batman. So I wanted to get your take on that briefly, and then I had one other note to make with this as well, with the Batman universe with Robert Pattinson.
I think that Matt Reeves can do a very good job with this movie. I'm a little worried that jamming this many villains in is bogging down the potential depth of one or two of them. Like, are you just... So, what are you going to do? Are you going to show Riddler... Is Riddler going to be the main villain, but you're going to show Two-Face and maybe Penguin get taken down at the very beginning and get carted off to Arkham? That's fine. You know, you just show them, they're gone, now you deal with the Riddler and Catwoman, whatever. That's writing can work that way, and that's fine. If you're not going to do that, and you're going to try to juggle all these characters for a whole movie, I think that'll be bad. I've never seen a superhero movie deal with that many villains and be good. Really.
Yeah, I think that's a concern, because you can do this stuff with video games. Like when we heard Arkham City was going to have a million different, and even then there was some concern that there was too many, and people still talk about it, that there was too many villains in that game. I don't think so, but some people have talked about that. With a movie, you have way less time and way less of a landscape to work with it. So, like you said, if there are some cameos and you bring in some good tones, some good casting choices that work well, and if you have the Riddler as the main one, have Catwoman maybe a nice supplemental character to Batman, you know, like an anti-hero, and then Two-Face and Penguin fit in there a little bit here and there, I think that can be really cool. It's just a concern, like you said, of oversaturation, I feel like, where you can have other villains get weighed down, like the Riddler if he's the main one. Which, is he the main one? I wasn't sure.
It seems like he's being pushed as one of the main ones, but I don't know that either.
Okay, so if you've got like maybe a league of villains, maybe, but then there's still the concern of it weighing down one from shining almost, and I'm not saying that you can't have multiple villains that thrive together and make a really good tandem, and you can make a quality villain and then movie out of that. But it's a concern about oversaturation. I think Matt Reeves can handle it, though, in my opinion. I think it'll be fine.
I definitely think he can handle it. I am not paid to write movies. If I was writing this, I would not be giving them all major parts in the movie script. So, for example, I would maybe show, like I said, the Penguin in a scene. He's gone, now we deal with the other people. Allows more time for them, while also establishing the universe. That said, Matt Reeves is a smart guy. I'm pretty sure that's what he'd be doing anyway. So I don't really think he needs my advice on that.
Right.
I would assume that he'd be going that direction, especially after the blunders of things like Spider-Man 3 and Amazing Spider-Man 2, which, yes, they're Marvel, but everybody saw the mistakes of them. That's what happens when you try to jam 5 or 6 villains in a movie. That's not a good idea. Maybe we shouldn't do that. So, I don't know.
For sure. I totally agree. Well, and moving, just to kind of keep moving here with the Batman story, and I want to get your opinion on this too. A Batgirl movie, it hasn't been officially announced. However, there are rumors that it's going to be tied in with the Batman. It's pretty much, it's from Screen Rant, and I think they're a pretty reliable source. So I think that, well, I know what they said, is that the Batgirl movie is going to be tied in with Robert Pattinson's Batman, and that this movie is going to be directed by Joss Whedon, is what it's rumored to be.
Well, I thought that was out, though, because Joss Whedon had like a really big, also clarification on my opinion here. I'm not calling Joss Whedon a sexist. He had a big sexist, like, scandal, though, of, like, a lot of rumors and news coming out about him, like, possibly cheating on his wife and, like, sleeping with or wanting to sleep with all these actresses. And this was back when this was a DCEU movie, so this was a long time ago.
Oh, I apologize. I misread it entirely. Joss Whedon is not directing this movie.
Okay, because I was going to say, why are they keeping
He is not directing this movie.
And I don't mean...
He was rumored to be, and then they're like, no, we're not doing that. And then, so now they're moving on, and there's calls for a female to direct this movie.
Well,
and they found a female screenwriter already for the movie, so it's going to be at the top of DC's and Warner Brothers list to send out soon. But yeah, I apologize. That was horrible news.
Yeah,
Joss Whedon is not connected to this movie. So.
That's okay. That'll stay in the podcast. If we do any kind of news video, I'd take that out.
Yes. Yeah.
I don't think we need to. This is older news.
No.
But, I think that's a good thing. Let me tackle it from two directions real quick.
Of course.
One, it's a good thing Joss Whedon's out. First off, I never liked the guy. And my word is gospel. So, No, Joss Whedon's made a lot of crap I don't like. I mean, what's the good thing he's made? Buffy the Vampire Slayer? That's it that I can think of.
Avengers.
He's written some yeah, really great. The first Avengers. I mean, it's a good movie, but it's the worst of... Well, okay. Here's the thing. A lot of people think Age of Ultron is the worst. I think the first Avengers is the worst of all of them. But it's really dang close to Age of Ultron. They fight in my head for which one's worse.
Which they're not bad movies.
No,
thing.
But
compared to Infinity War and Endgame.
Oh, they are compared to Infinity War and Endgame. They're bad. Yeah, sure. But I mean, I don't know. Just $5 pizza is great. If you go out and you buy a pizza for $5, you're like, wow, this is good. This is pizza. Then you go out to Chicago. You have a $50 pizza and it's just heaven. Obviously, they're both pizza. They're both good. One's great.
I like that.
Yeah. So that's kind of my thing is I never thought Joss Whedon did the best job with making superhero movies great anyway because he made them kind of a cartoony joke. And I just have never been down with that style of it. I've never thought it was funny. I've never really thought it was charming.
Or at least he did it in a way that was funny, is the way that he does it.
Yes.
There are ways to make it charming and funny and campy that works.
Yes.
I just don't know if he's able to capture that well.
Well, and a lot of them have been unintentional. The Adam West Batman was not meant to be campy. It was just meant to be fun, and it has not aged well and was enjoyable. And then when they came back to it with the cartoons, they went in on the campiness too.
Yes.
That's how you do it. It's through nostalgia and let's have a fun time. I don't know. You know what? Maybe I'm way off base with this. I know everybody loves Avengers 1. That's great. I'm happy for you. I love the MCU. But with that, and then with the whole Snyder Cut thing of him just butchering Justice League and not being able to see Scott Snyder's version of it, I just don't want to see more superhero movies from Joss Whedon. I don't care.
No, and I do apologize for sending you down this road. Because I did from some... fake news is what I did. So I sent you down a spiral of angry Joss Whedon nostalgia.
No,
so I need to correct myself and make sure that But do you think that a Batgirl film? I think it can be done well. But the one thing that they had a problem with Joss Whedon that he got kicked out for was that he said that he simply couldn't find a story in the concept of Batgirl. Which is really stupid.
What are you talking about?
It's really bad.
Why? Because she's not sexy enough for
That's
you?
what it says on Screen Rant here.
Because this guy, here's the thing. I don't want to get sued, so again, I'll put this all down as my opinion.
Of course.
I never thought he was that great of a guy when it came to writing and dealing with female characters anyway. Black Widow's the most sexualized under Joss Whedon's reign in Avengers 1. Just stuff like that. And it's okay to do that, but when it's pandery and just overdone... I don't know if I would have wanted him at that head of a story of a female superhero without it just coming down to, sex appeal. So I'm glad they're going a different direction. I think there's plenty of stories you can tell with Batgirl. She's had comics since the 80s?
Long time.
90s? So, and she's been in comics since before then. I don't know. There's plenty of stories you can tell with Batgirl.
And let me say his direct quote, too. He said, Batgirl is such an exciting project, and Warner's DC... such collaborative and supportive partners, terrible English, that it took me months to realize that I didn't have a story, is what he said. So, looking at his direct quote, essentially he couldn't come up with a story for Batgirl, is really what it was. So, he couldn't find a concept in it, couldn't find something, so he literally said that there isn't really a sexier word for it, he just failed in finding a story for her. So, that was his perspective, where he came from. This is older news, but it's still interesting to talk about because it is the film, and we haven't discussed it before. I haven't heard about any of this stuff before.
And I really wonder if that's really why, though. It totally could be. Again, I don't hate Joss Whedon as a person, but with all of those reports coming out about him and the issues with the possible issues with his wife and with women on sets and stuff like that, and how touchy of a subject this all is, especially since the Me Too movement, I just don't know if they would want that around.
Yeah, I agree. And, what do you think about Batgirl then coming in with Robert Pattinson. Like, do you think that could work really well? Do you think they're going to then build a universe now because that's rumored to be happening?
I think it could work really well. I think it's hard to do, though, because Robert Pattinson is so young. It's hard to establish a fatherly relationship with Batgirl unless she's really young. And without it being, like, there's been pushback every time there's been any kind of romantic anything between Batman and Batgirl, like, from fandoms. And so I guess I would be a little afraid that they would possibly steer it in that direction if they're around the same age. That is my one concern with this, is if Pattinson is such a young Batman, you know, early 30s, and how old would she be, like 20? You know, that's what I'm saying, is like, how do you do this well? Maybe you can, because I think that the DC animated universe was able to do it well, but there's still a lot of hints that Barbara is totally into Bruce, like, in the show.
Yeah.
Like, she calls him from college in Mystery of the Batwoman, and kind of is like, hey, wanna bang? But not really. Like, she's calling and she's like, how you doing? I'm gonna be on spring break for 2 whole weeks. You wanna hang out? And he's like, really
horrifying.
And he's really uncomfortable. And he literally has, like, he takes a newspaper and he's with Alfred and he's like, sorry, Barbara, we're going through the East Tunnel now.
Where did you get that bag?
It was on my couch. And he's like scrunching it up next to the phone. I gotta go. And he like bails. And then later on in the DC animated universe, it's implied that they did have a relationship. And there wasn't a lot. That's in Batman Beyond. And there's not a lot of pushback there, but that's the most accepted version of it. And it's the most vague. So I'm not saying that's in the writing. I'm just saying that I'm afraid with them being around the same age that would be a potential way to take the story. And I don't know how you do that well because nobody does.
Gotcha.
That's all I'm saying. So I think the idea of them tying together is great. It's just harder to do the younger you make Batman without it being like a, you know, tie-in of Robin.
Yeah. I see what you, 100%, because you could go, it can be dangerous. I was wondering if they maybe could make, if they went just a completely with their own direction and made Barbara around the same age as Bruce. And it was almost like if they went for like a partnership more so of them being the same age, being in the same area. You know what I mean? What if they didn't go with that father-daughter kind of vibe as much? You know what I mean?
Yeah, you could.
You could leave the parental part out of it and you could just go with a completely different vibe, which the DC is completely capable of doing because they do whatever they want with all of their stories, which is a good thing and a bad thing. So
there's just a precedent of the female characters in Batman movies ending up being his love interests.
For sure.
In like every Batman movie.
Right.
So that's where that comes from for me. I don't think that necessarily a female character of his same age would need to be written that way. I just think there's a history of it. Like every time Catwoman's been in a Batman movie, she's been a love interest of Batman.
Yeah, she has, yeah.
And that's fine. That's from the comics. But that sort of set a precedent. Every other girl, like Vicky Vale, was obviously the character from the first movie, which I don't even remember her name. It wasn't Vicky Vale in the Michael Keaton one.
Oh, she was like, was she a psychologist or something?
No, that was the one in Batman Forever.
Or
no. Was Vicky Vale the one in the first one, and then the psychologist was Dr. Whatever in Batman Forever.
Maybe it was that. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's how they did it. And that works when it has a basis in the comics. It's just, it gets harder. I don't know if I'm making any sense or not. I'm trying to. But essentially, it's hard to write these things if you've established this pattern, unless you're just totally good with breaking it, which maybe now that they've gone their own direction with the Joker, they are okay with doing that. Just thinking out loud, I don't know. No idea from me.
No, I completely, I do get what you're saying for sure. So nowhere, and it was Dr. Chase Meridian.
Thank you.
I was looking it up. That's why I wasn't.
She is so hot.
Yes, she is. So that's what I was looking up. But I agree. There's a lot of different directions that they can go, and
I just don't want them to mess it up. But with Matt Reeves, I'm sure they won't. And whoever I bet they get to direct this other movie, it'll be intelligent. I don't think they can mess up with Batman again.
For sure.
I love Batfleck, but there was some mishandling of BVS with the script and other things, and then Justice League, and they can't repeat it.
No.
So I'm sure they know that. So that's really all we've got for the podcast. No gaming news this week in the podcast, but there will be some on the channel.
Because we want to get that out to you quicker.
Yeah, as quick as we can. For our podcast recap of our last week's, I really butchered that completely. For our recap of our week.
So many recaps.
What have you been up to?
So, I went in and reinstalled Titanfall 2.
Ooh.
So I was like, and I did it solely off of your recommendation because I heard the story. You were telling me that the story was fantastic.
Yeah.
That it was a fun, a really enjoyable shooter, first-person shooter.
It is.
I have been
first-person
pleasantly, that I have been pleasantly surprised with what I've been playing so far. It's been so fun. The climbing off the walls feels like a really polished, enjoyable version of Black Ops 3, where like it's just a million times better. Like the platforming, there actually is platforming where you're like jumping around, you have to time things correctly.
And don't you see you like pull your hands up? Like
yes,
yeah.
Yes, it's great. The guns are super fun. And then when you finally embark in the Titan, and then it's BT, which BT is fantastic.
I was going to ask you what you thought about him.
I love BT. And I'm only like 3 or 4 missions in, so I'm really not too far, but I'm having a great time playing it, and I'm slowly working my way through it, and that's kind of what I've been. And then I did watch Fast 5. So I watched the 5th one, and I'm now moving on to Fast 6. Hopefully this weekend I can get that one.
What did you think of Fast 5? That is one of the best movies in the franchise.
I loved it. I had a really, really good time with it.
You know, Fast 5 is a movie that not only is considered an amazing Fast and the Furious movie, it's actually considered a hit modern-day action film.
Really?
Like, it's up there with Mission Impossible. Like, people considered Fast 5 to be that good of a movie, of an action movie.
I mean, the twist, I love that The Rock came in, and at first, I was like, The Rock is kind of cringy right now. But then he started to kind of, I think, get better as the film went on, because there were some lines when he first showed up where it was like, ugh,
well, at first he's almost playing like The Rock in the ring. Like, like just promotional dialogue.
But like the bad version of The Rock.
Yeah, and then he kind of gets better. I agree.
And then he becomes home, and he actually is a really good character. By the end of the movie, I really like The Rock. I still loved Vin Diesel. I still loved Dom Toretto. I still loved Brian O'Connor. I still loved.
Yeah, what did you think about him in that movie? I thought he was better in
Dom
5.
or
no,
Brian O'Connor. He really started to become Brian O'Connor a bit again, because Fast 4 was not my favorite version of Brian O'Connor. It was kind of a weird, depressed, just like angry version of him, where you go from the first one and even the second one, and he's like a fun, playful guy. And that just completely shifted in 4. So 5, he kind of came back to that a bit, had some fun things. He was still serious and was still like the FBI agent, but not really. He was on the run. He was more fun. It felt like a burden was off his shoulder. So I actually enjoyed his character a lot more. I loved the twists at the end that happened. And I really liked seeing all the characters come together from all the movies that I had seen so far. It was actually like kind of satisfying payoff.
It's a really good cinematic universe. It's really sad that Paul Walker passed.
Yeah.
Not just for... Obviously, because it's a human being who passed, too.
Right.
And he seemed like a really great guy. My understanding was he was a really upbeat, like, upstanding Christian guy who, like, did a lot of charity work and made some mistakes, but, like, really did his best and was a good person. And so it made me really sad when he died, you know, to kind of read all of that about him. Like, I had never really known, and you only know what you read because you could never meet them, but to just kind of read how loved of a human being he was and to see how much it affected Vin Diesel after was really sad.
Really sad.
Like, really sad. I remember I was working at Target at the time, and I remember driving home just feeling like crap because they said it on the radio, like, yeah, today Paul Walker died, and I was like, oh man,
yeah,
like that just sucked. And it sucked for that reason, and it sucked for the reason of, like, him just being such a good character in those movies. Like, he's just really fun.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, not to be depressing about that.
It is depressing, but yes.
It was just sad, you know? Like, he was so good.
He was.
I'm glad everybody else is still around, but I miss him every time I see one of those movies.
No doubt. It's legitimately a bummer, so yeah.
Did you watch or do anything else?
That's kind of the highlights. It's been mostly work, and then it's just been homework. I've just kind of been getting bombarded. So it should lighten up in the second half of the semester coming up here because there's 7-week accelerated courses. So I'm just about to be done. I've got 2 more weeks of this one, and then the next next 7 weeks should be quite a bit lighter. So nice. I'm excited about that.
That's good. Yeah. That's good. You need more time.
Yeah.
For me, oh man, what have I done? Well, I want to include a couple things from a week ago because the podcast failed. I finished Supernatural. I told you about that already. So
yes.
I want to just keep it brief. Finished season 14. Really great twist at the end of season 14. Did it fit in the best to the entire narrative of the show? yes and no. It seems like it's kind of a decision they made at some point about 2 seasons ago and not in season 1. But I thought it was really good, and I really enjoyed it, and I'm excited for the last season. I had wanted them to do a spinoff of this show because they had talked about it, but it's probably for the best that they don't, because Supernatural is one of the few things where they caught lightning in a bottle and didn't really mess it up too bad for the whole show's run. It had some weak seasons, but overall stayed pretty good, mostly, except for one really bad season. So I'm glad I finished that. I'm excited for the end. I really hope they don't botch the ending. I can't survive another Dexter. So I don't want another, I devoted all this time to it and it sucks at the end. Please don't do that.
That was tough. Yeah,
because the rest of that show I love even. Dexter.
I remember how mad you were about that. I mean, you were visibly upset
and the thing
for weeks.
People say that it's the last episode of Dexter. It's the whole last season. There is an episode in Dexter where he's standing outside of a bar in broad daylight watching a serial killer, and the serial killer spots him later on, and he's like, how did he see me? And he was standing outside the bar in broad daylight, up against the window, pressed to it like an idiot. It's like, how did he see me? He must be very skilled. And it's like, who wrote this? Like, literally a 12-year-old? It was the worst thing I've ever seen. And it made me so angry. It's so sad that such a great show went downhill. I don't want that to happen again. This is my TLDR.
Right.
Other than that, I platinumed Arkham Knight. That's done.
Brilliant.
I've been working on playing more of Injustice 2 again, actually. I still suck, but I want to platinum that game, too.
Yeah.
I don't know why I'm doing it with so many games lately, but I have been. I platinumed Ultimate Alliance 2.
Oh, you did do it?
Yeah, with Nate.
Very good.
So we finished that, and I've actually been playing more of Battlefront 2 again.
Interesting.
Because they added a
I
co-op
did re-download it, too.
Yeah. So that has been fun. Been doing awesome. That. That's really it. I'm really excited for the Joker. I'm sure I'll have seen it by the time this whole podcast goes up, but that's kind of where I'm at right now. Is I'm excited for that. That's my next big thing, and I've been working too much as well. So
yeah, I didn't even mention the Joker. Yeah, that comes out tomorrow when we're recording this, so we'll definitely have seen it by the next time that we hang out. So I'm really excited to talk about that.
Yeah, me too. Anyway, guys, we hope you enjoyed the podcast. Here's our outro music. We hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you in the next one. Have a great week. Goodbye.